The bad news is that the gap between you and the rich is about to get much deeper and much unfair than ever. I know the gap is already very deep, but you've seen nothing. During the 2020s and the 2030s, the rich are gonna appear almost as superhuman compared to the rest of the population. The good news is that during this decade, you too can join the ranks of the super rich. Actually, the paradox is that at the beginning of the AI revolution, it's going to be easier than ever before in history to join the ranks. But be warned, because this special window of opportunity to rise with the AI elite is closing. You have just a few months or at most a couple of years to walk through that door. You must act very rapidly. You must act yesterday. I will tell you how. Hi, I'm Matt Garcia and I write books about Web3 and artificial intelligence. My approach comes from a mixture of hands-on experience working in tech and also an academic background in biology and the history and philosophy of science that give me a big picture understanding of the current revolution. And I've recently published a book on today's topic precisely, how to avoid poverty and profit from the wealth explosion during the AI decade. Because as it happens, a very perverse phenomenon is taking place in this decade. The very same force that can condemn you to poverty will make you much richer than you could have ever imagined if you activate a special switch. I will tell you about that switch in a few minutes. This video is structured in two parts. The initial sections explain the battlefield in which the game of the next 10 years is played and in which the switch is located. The second part is about the strategy that you need to implement to turn on that switch and to be one of the winners of the game that takes place on that battlefield. It's a strategy built on 7 core principles. If you're impatient, you can skip the initial sections, but I really recommend watching them because only people who have a full view of the battlefield on which they stand can confidently implement the success strategy. I know you guys really loved my previous video, seeing the amounts of comments and debate, but as much as that video was very important to help you open your eyes to the problem, this one is even more important because it gives you the roadmap to solve that problem. Honestly, I'm not exaggerating. Understanding the 7 principles in this video can completely change your standard of living for the rest of your life. Okay, now let's get started because the AI revolution is not waiting for us. The fracture. The infamous divide between the rich and poor. I know how you have already heard that it's getting worse than even a few decades ago, but during the AI revolution, it's going to be bigger than ever before in human history. This is not noticeable yet because, as Satya Nadella recently put it, we are just in year 2 of the revolution, and the amount of change in exponential revolution starts very slow in the initial years. But very soon within this decade, the compounding effects of advanced AI and advanced robotics are gonna kick off, and one after another, entire categories of jobs are gonna become replaceable. This is going to send the wealth of the rich to the stratosphere and the rest of the population into different forms of neo-poverty. The replacement. If you still don't know why AI and robotics are so deadly for human jobs and why your job will also be replaced by them, yes, your job too, I recommend that you watch my previous video. The link should be up here. The key takeaway from that video is that this time no job is safe, because this time we are building a tandem of 2 technologies that complete the circle of automation that had started in the first, second, and third industrial revolutions. These 2 technologies are, number 1, AGI, which is human-level AI, which means AI that is as creative, strategic, empathetic, and logical as the human mind, and that will replace all white-collar, managerial, creative, and empathy-requiring jobs. And number 2, AI-powered robots, especially robots with human form factors that once produced at scale, as Tesla is beginning to do, will cost less to operate and maintain per year than even the cheapest blue-collar worker salaries. Wealth concentration. And what happens when businesses don't need to share part of their profits with the humans that they employ? That the owners of those businesses get much richer, of course. But you may have heard one common objection to this. Nah, that will never happen because the economy cannot work without lots of consumers. This objection is actually a very widespread misconception. To understand why it is not correct, let's look for a moment at how wealth is truly made. In traditional economics, there is a thing called the 4 factors of production. These are the 4 inputs of wealth. The 4 inputs necessary to create the economic output, to create more wealth. These 4 inputs have old-fashioned names coming from classical economics, which make them confusing. So let's update the names to something more descriptive. So the 4 inputs of wealth creation with modern names are Number 1, natural resources, which are all the raw materials, land, energy, wildlife necessary to produce stuff. 2, labor, which are the employees necessary to produce stuff. 3, technology, which includes all the non-natural things, all the equipment that we need to produce stuff. Factories, computers, vehicles, machines, robots. And 4, entrepreneurship, which are the entrepreneurial ideas and innovations that we use to combine the other 3 factors to produce stuff. So why is the current revolution going to reshuffle the world so radically? Because AI and robotics, as they begin to replace humans, will make labor and entrepreneurship collapse and be absorbed by the category of technology. As a result, as we get closer to AGI, whoever owns the technology input also gets to keep the part of the wealth that previously went into the pockets of the human workers and entrepreneurs. Because at some point when AGI is reached, AI and androids will be better than any human worker or any human entrepreneur, and also cheaper and faster. And if you still don't think this full replacement is possible, that's very natural, because lots of journalists and futurists are constantly parroting the same 3 objections to calm the public down. In my previous video, I explained why those 3 reassuring objections are in reality not supported by historical and technological facts. The take-home message is that over the next decade, the world's wealth is going to further concentrate and belong only to the owners of the natural resources and the owners of the machines, or as I call them, the AGI robotic industrial complex. Wealth explosion. But wealth is not only going to concentrate, it's also going to explode in size, because automation removes all in one go 2 bottlenecks of economic growth. If you look back at how wealth output is created, the same 4 inputs to make wealth are also its bottlenecks, because the more of each of the 4 ingredients you have, the more output you get. And when any of the ingredients reaches its limit, growth stalls. When tech replaces labor, the labor bottleneck diminishes, because now companies can produce the exact type of workers they need on demand. And also because the cost per worker decreases as the tech evolves, because technology gets better and cheaper over time. As you know, computers have been getting smaller, faster, better, and cheaper since the 1950s. Exactly the same is happening to AI now. As the NVIDIA CEO said recently, in the last 10 years, the cost of deep learning has been reduced, brace yourself.
And as a result, in the last 10 years, we reduced the cost of computing by 1 million times.
1 million times. Same with entrepreneurship and innovation. As AI and AGI begin to replace this input, the amount of available managerial, entrepreneurial, and innovator talent can be increased on demand. So that leaves us with just 2 bottlenecks: the amount of available tech and the amount of available natural resources. And even these, although not as dramatically as the other 2 bottlenecks, will also be alleviated by AI, because AI tech is self-recursive, in the sense that it can be used to improve itself. And AI can also be used to improve all the other aspects of the technological stack. More powerful and efficient chips, data centers, robotic equipment, new computing architectures like quantum, and so on. As for the natural resources bottleneck, AI also helps there. For example, it is expected to unlock extraordinary new energy sources, like fusion. The take-home message is that when so many bottlenecks of economic growth are cleared in such quick succession, an incomprehensible amount of wealth creation follows. That's why if you manage to own even a small amount of the AGI robotics industrial complex, you will become very wealthy. And we will see more on that in the second part. But before that, let's see why this wealth explosion is going to be much more rapid than the majority of people can imagine. An intuitive speed. If the big labor replacement and the wealth explosion are just around the corner, why aren't more people talking about this? The reason is a very common psychological phenomenon: exponential skepticism. AI progress is recursive exponential change, and exponential changes start slow and then get fast all of a sudden. But the problem is that the human mind has a blind spot. Due to evolutionary reasons, we have a glitch in our thinking. Our brain is biased towards interpreting everything as linear change, because the majority of things that we have to deal with in everyday life are linear. So if we see something growing slowly now, like for example job automation, we find it unbelievable that it will be growing ultra fast tomorrow. A great example of exponential skepticism is the last pandemic.
How worried should Americans be? Should they panic?
No, Americans do not need to panic. What I would suggest, however, is that Americans take this as a wake-up call for seasonal flu.
Still, thousands of people have died in the U.S. from the flu.
People should be more concerned right now with the flu in this country.
Flu is a much bigger deal.
There's an important context we need to keep this in, and that is that the flu is more deadly.
And while there's a lot of fear over this coronavirus, the flu is already widespread in the U.S., and it really is much more deadly.
How worried should Americans be about coronavirus?
Coronavirus is not going to cause a major issue in the United States.
The risk is low. The risk, however, for the flu is through the roof.
And the flu right now is far deadlier. So if you're freaked out at all about the coronavirus, you should be more concerned about the flu.
In all those countries, there were a few people who understood Exponential's warning governments and the press, telling them that massive gatherings were not a good idea because the virus was spreading exponentially, and it was days away from getting out of control. But politicians and journalists didn't understand exponential growth, and so were reckless until the last minute. Then when it was too late, they were scared by their own recklessness, and they overreacted and locked us all down in our homes, creating a mental health epidemic and wrecking the economy. The take-home message is that people react to exponentials when it is too late. And by understanding this, you have a massive competitive advantage if you begin to position yourself now in these initial moments of the AI revolution. Neo-poverty. So what happens to a society that experiences a very accelerated job automation? What happens is a two-class society. On one hand, the owners of the AGI robotics industrial complex getting richer and richer as the self-recursive complex grows and improves itself. And on the other hand, the neo-poor. I call them neo-poor because they will probably be poor in a very different way than what we are used to now. It's a bit like a poor person in the 18th century, when the poor and their children could die of starvation very easily. Those people could never have imagined that the poor of 200 years later would actually have the opposite problem and be very vulnerable to obesity. One of the forms that neo-poverty could take in the AI age is UBI dependence. UBI stands for Universal Basic Income and is a salary that the government will give to people so that they can cover their basic needs even if they go jobless. It is probable that at some point, some form of UBI will be implemented for two main reasons. First, to avoid social unrest and even potential revolutions. And second, to avoid economic disruption. This second one deserves a brief explanation because before I said that if you think in first principles, the production of wealth doesn't require lots of consumers. And that's correct, but even if they are not strictly needed for the actual production of wealth, in practical terms, a too rapid reduction in the number of consumers can be problematic for a number of reasons related to financial and economic policy. That's why UBI is a perfect way for the elites to ease society out of the old labor paradigm and into the automated paradigm with minimal transitional disruption. UBI and you. Here you may be thinking, okay, but if you just said that probably at some point we are all going to get a universal basic income, why bother trying to get into the class of the owners of the machines? Well, the answer is in the probably, at some point, and basic. Probably. When thinking about future social trends, we are always moving in the space of possible scenarios. Honestly, as things are today, I do think some form of UBI for the masses is more likely than not. But do you want to bet your entire fate on that probability at some point? And even if I believe UBI is likely to happen, I am not half as confident that it will be implemented fast enough. Human institutions are famously bad at adapting quickly to new technological realities. Lots of politicians, corporations, and other stakeholders will have to agree on the new taxes required to fund the massive UBI programs. And until that happens, many jobless people could experience a lot of hardship. Basic. UBI has basic in it for a reason, because for now nobody expects that it will be enough to live in abundance. Perhaps not even enough to live a regular middle-class life like the one you may be living right now. Of course, this can change over time, and if all goes well and the owners of the machines don't get too greedy and the politicians don't get too corrupt, they may begin to share more, potentially making your UBI a very reasonable amount. Who knows, perhaps even the state will expropriate all the AI masters' wealth and we will live in some neo-socialist system in which everybody gets an equal share. But once again, do you really want to bet your well-being and your health on the hope that they don't get too greedy or that the state enforces equality? Besides, even if over time UBI salaries become large enough to live a very comfortable life, what about during the transition years? During those years, the amount may not be enough to afford many of the important things in life. Perhaps not even to afford preserving your life. The biomedical revolution. Because you know one of the things that you may not be able to afford during those transition years. The biomedical advancements that AI is starting to unravel. AI is already accelerating medical and drug research. Again, for the initial few years, we won't notice this yet, because the exponentiality of AI-powered science also starts slow. But the new AI tools are already blowing the minds of the biomedical researchers. Just one example, the AI tool AlphaFold. Whenever researchers are trying to cure a disease or fight aging, they need to figure out the shape of the proteins that are involved in those processes. Proteins are the doers inside biological bodies, and their role is central to understand and fix all sorts of life processes. The problem is that traditionally it could take a biology PhD student their entire doctoral years to accomplish it for just one protein. Now, AlphaFold does it in minutes. As a consequence of AI-assisted biomedical research, medicine is also about to go exponential. Radical life extension and rejuvenation sounded like complete science fiction until very recently. Now, many researchers in the area expect it to happen within this decade. However, as with any new technology, at the beginning these therapies could be very expensive. The take-home message is that I don't think that any of us likes the idea of a two-class society, but I do believe that a very nasty two-class society is a significant risk for at least some transition years. And you know the only worse thing than a two-class society? A two-class society in which you are stuck in the class of the poor, winning the AI game. So at this point, you probably have decided that you want to take action to have control over your own destiny. You don't want to rely on billionaire or government charity for your survival. But you may be wondering, what can you possibly do to join the ranks of the winners during this revolution? Well, the great thing is that winning at the AI game is much simpler than people imagine. Actually, during the next handful of years, at the same time that the majority of people go jobless, it will also be the easiest time in history to become rich. The problem is that right now, even those who see what's coming tend to take a passive attitude. The majority of reasonable people have already accepted the fact that an AI revolution is going to rock their lives. They also can feel that a wealth explosion is coming, but they see it as some sort of lottery of life that is about to shower money only on those who were lucky enough to have AI degrees or who own one of the companies that build the AI models. Because common sense suggests that AI wealth will flow towards the AI experts. And that's correct. But here comes the good part. The first principle of the AI rider strategy. 1. You don't need to be an AI expert to be an AI expert. Sounds like a contradiction, right? But it isn't, because of the next principle. 2. AI is the first revolution in human history that changes every sector, not just the AI sector. And why is that? Because every single human job and every single business has intelligence at its core. And now we are beginning to produce a synthetic form of it. So we can apply this synthetic intelligence to every job and every business. And the consequence is that 3. You don't need to leave your current career to profit from the AI wealth explosion. The AI game is so different because any previous invention affected only certain types of occupations. For example, even one of the most world-changing inventions in history, the combustion engine, didn't change every job directly. A teacher, a cook, an artist, or an accountant did not see direct changes in their work because of the combustion engine. Emphasis on direct, because having better transport or better industry obviously impacted everybody indirectly. AI is different because it is directly applicable to every single job, every single business niche, because intelligence is a direct input of every human activity. That's why, as we saw in the previous video, AI is going to destroy jobs in every single sector. So your specific job type, your business niche, is also going to be decimated by AI at some point during the revolution. But oddly enough, this isn't bad for everyone, because here comes the fourth and the cruelest of the principles. 4. The same force that is going to destroy the livelihoods of millions of people is going to make those who remain in the workforce or in business more and more valuable, more and more wealthy. I call these people and businesses the AI riders because they ride the wave of change instead of being destroyed by its tsunami force. They use the leverage switch to redirect the AI force in their favor. They don't wait passively for AI and robotics to get smart and cheap enough to replace them. Instead, they harness the power of the enemy and turn it to their favor. And they do so by adopting one of the 3 AI leverage profiles: the doer AI rider, the consultant AI rider, or the narrator AI rider. These 3 profiles can be applied to every career and business niche to increase your productivity and the value you generate as an employee or as a business. And adopting AI early is so powerful because 5. AI offers the greatest form of leverage that we've had in all human history. Indeed, AI is changing every sector in both a destructive and an augmentative way. So those who use AI to leverage what they previously did without AI now become ultra-productive, ultra-valuable. As an AI rider, you will learn to use the augmentative side of AI in your niche early enough to profit from the leverage. The result: you will not only keep your livelihood while others see theirs taken by the tsunami, but you will also be a beneficiary of the wealth concentration that takes place when fewer participants have to share the wealth pie. And as we saw before, it's not just sharing the same pie, but you will be sharing with them an ever-growing pie because of the wealth explosion. A larger wealth output shared between fewer and fewer high-value AI leverage employees and entrepreneurs. But how does it work in practice? As an AI rider, you need to become one of the initial mavericks who learn everything about AI and your niche, how to apply the new AI tools to your niche, but also understand how AI is going to change work processes in your niche. You will also become an expert in steering your career towards the areas within your sector that still require humans to generate value or to coordinate the automated processes. Same if you are a business owner, you have to become proficient on how leveraging the AI tools boosts whatever product or service you provide. Also study the specific ways in which the ecosystems where your company operates is going to be transformed, augmented, and threatened by AI. The entire economy is going to be penetrated by the AI niche. That's why you don't need to move into the AI niche to profit from the AI wealth explosion. AI is coming to you because AI is infusing everything. 6. To survive and thrive during the AI revolution, you must become an absolute expert in the confluence between AI and your niche. This is going to require a lot of learning, I know. I didn't say it was going to be effortless. When I say that this is the easiest time in history to become rich, I mean easy for those people who put in the hard work. Because in many other times in history, even if you did put in the hard work, it wasn't easy at all to change your life. Sometimes it was outright impossible. For example, in medieval times, even if you worked very hard, it was extremely difficult to go from peasant to merchant, and the law made it impossible to get into the top social class, the aristocracy. The first and second industrial revolutions made social mobility easier due to the new forms of leverage that were invented. And with the third, we even started to see the phenomenon of the overnight teenage billionaire. Well, brace yourself for what's coming during the fourth industrial revolution. The ease for making money, it's going to be ridiculous. But what if my niche still doesn't have enough AI tools to boost output? That's not a problem at all. Actually, that's even better because that means that the window of opportunity is even more widely open in your sector than in other sectors. The less a specific field is penetrated by AI, the earlier you are as an AI writer and the more time you have to prepare and to become one of the go-to guys for the transition. And speaking of AI automation, you may be wondering, Matt, you said in the previous video that AI will only augment us for some time, but that after a while, AI will get so good that it will be even better than any human writer at piloting AI. And that's completely true. In fact, the AI writer strategy is extremely powerful but will be very short-lived. And that's why I tell people that they must forget about work-life balance for the next handful of years and choose work, work, work in balance. Yeah, I know this advice is politically incorrect, but it is the truth. You will have the entire rest of your life to not work. But you only have a handful of years left to decide if you end up in the group of the non-working poor or the non-working rich. This is another thing that I explain in my book. No matter how good an AI writer you are, how well you shift your game to move into the areas within your niche that AI hasn't cannibalized yet, sooner or later, AI will be better than the best of AI writers. And here's where the flip side of the strategy comes in. The AI Writer Wealth Accumulation Strategy. The final key component of the AI Writer strategy is to reinvest part of the money generated as an AI writer in acquiring AI equity and post-scarcity resistant assets. Looking back at the 4 inputs of wealth, we can see that at some point labor and entrepreneurship will have been cannibalized by technology. That's why the owners of the 2 remaining inputs will own the world. Especially the owners of the most important input, technology, the all-pervasive AI robotics industrial complex. The secret is to acquire as much equity as possible in the companies that make up the AI robotics industrial complex. That way, when the game of musical chairs ends, you will be one of those who still has a chair in the form of ownership in the complex. The AI Rider wealth accumulation strategy is to redirect the excess money that you make as an AI rider into acquiring as much stake in the complex as possible. That's the final principle. 7. Your end game is to acquire as much stake as possible in the very thing that will replace you. And please don't underestimate the amount that you will be able to acquire. It is larger than you think for 2 reasons. First, because even if you start with no capital, the powerful leverage of AI can make you a very valuable professional very soon, since the leverage of AI is exponential. So the earnings of those who manage to remain in the game as AI writers can become ridiculously big very rapidly. Second, because the exponentiality also applies to your stake in the complex. Even owning what now seems a little amount of equity in the complex can be worth a fortune in the future when that complex is generating ever more wealth, ever more rapidly thanks to its recursive self-improvement. Trillionaire will soon be the new billionaire, and billionaire the new millionaire. Next steps? There are lots of things that I haven't been able to squeeze into this video, like looking in more detail at the available timeline that you have, or how to maximize the time that you can escape replacement as AI gets better and better. Also, something very important, how you can use the AI writer strategy even if you don't have a career right now, or even to change careers, because for example, you can leverage the AI writer strategy to easily break into passion careers like music or cinema. I also had to leave out how the 3 universal leverage profiles, the doer, the consultant, and the narrator, can be applied depending on your specific personality. So if you want to go into all the details, everything is in my book, The AI Writer, where I also give some specific examples to illustrate the method. It is available on Amazon and the link is up here. But if you are more of a video format kind of person, I will go into more detail in future videos. Especially if this video gets enough views, then I would love to create another longer video giving specific examples and breaking down the steps in more detail. Also, I will soon put out an important video on a very worrisome existential threat. It's an AI existential threat that almost nobody in the AI futurist community is discussing. and that directly affects the people who will get very rich with AI. I hope it won't get censored when I put it out because it's going to ruffle some feathers, but it's very important that people learn about it. So let me know in the comments if any of these 2 follow-up videos appeal to you so that I start to learn what type of content you like. I'm so glad that you have watched this video, even if the specific maybe still sound a bit abstract. If you make the decision of going into AI, of becoming an AI rider, I can assure you that you are gonna be one of the winners of the coming AI society. But you have to start early because this applies only to those who start now, not in 2 or 3 years' time. You must start before this beautiful window of opportunity that history has put in front of us closes. We are entering the wildest of times, guys, filled with risk but also filled with opportunity. Take a lot of care of yourselves.